Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you all are doing well. This is your host, the Matrix Man, coming to you again on the ones and zeros. Today we're going to be taking our first trip to the Python place, a place where we program in nothing but Python. Now, Python is an object-oriented programming language. Without getting too much into detail about that, an object-oriented programming language is a language that centers itself around data rather than logic and functions. And I'll get more into object-oriented programming in a later video. It's its own spiel. Now, Python is also a very popular programming language, especially amongst new programmers, due to its very simplistic syntax as compared to, say, Java or C++. And for those who speak Java and C++, you all will quickly realize what I'm talking about. Now, there are two ways that you can create a Python program. And that is, you can use a simple text editor. If you're running Windows, you can use Notepad or any text editor. I'm using Linux, so I'll be using gedit today. Alternatively, you can use what is known as an IDE. Now, an IDE is an integrated development environment, and that is basically it's used to make large-scale programs. It comes with libraries, modules, all the bells and whistles. IDEs can actually be a lot of fun. But for the sake of today's tutorial, I will just be using a simple text editor. It will do what we need it to do. If you would like to download an IDE for Python, there are two good ones I know of. JetBrainsAcademy.com has one. The PyCharm IDE, it actually works really well. I love PyCharm. And another one, it actually comes with Windows 10, is the Visual Studio. I actually use Visual Studio too. I love Visual Studio as well. Now, in Visual Studio, you can also create C++ programs. You create multiple programs. It doesn't have to just be Python. But PyCharm is centered around Python. But like I said, I'm going to be using the text editor today for the sake of our beginner tutorials. So I'm going to go ahead and open up my terminal. And I'm actually going to want to open up a side-by-side terminal. You can do this by, if you're running Linux, you can use the Control-Shift-9, and that will give you the side-by-side view. I'm running two because in one window I'm going to want to run gedit. If I were to close this window, it will close out gedit. And the other window is going to be to test our program as we go through the tutorial. Excuse me. To get started, I'm going to type gedit. That's the text editor I'm using. Gedit and the name of our new program, so we'll call it py1.py. Now, when creating a Python program, you're going to want to use the extension .py to specify it as a Python program. So we're going to hit that and let gedit run. Now, first what we're going to want to do is declare a Python program using the $/USR for user /bin/python 3. I'm using Python 3 today. So to begin our tutorial, we're going to talk about strings. Now, a string in programming is basically nothing but plain text. It is a collection of individual characters or even a single quoted character that you basically prints out in your program. So the words that you see on your screen, those are strings. A string holds no other value than text value. So basically it is a quote. So to get a string to print out in your program, you are going to want to use the keyword print with open parentheses, and then open the quotations and whatever text you would like your program to say. So in this instance, we're going to say, hello, my name is Terrence. And then we'll end the quotes and end the parentheses. Then we'll save it. I just hit Control S to save. And we'll come over here. And to run our Python program in our terminal, we are going to type Python 3 and the name of our Python file .py. So Python 3 py101.py. And as you can see, it prints out, hello, my name is Terrence. And you can literally have this print out whatever you would like for it to be. A string can contain anything that you would like. So say, hello, my name is Terrence, or hello, my name is Bob. Save that. Come over here, run it again, and you see it prints out, hello, my name is Bob. You can print out sentences. You can print a single word. Say hello. Hello. And you can print out single characters. Now, it is also worth mentioning that in Python, there is, for those of you who speak another programming language, I'm sure you all are familiar with the character data type. In Python, there is no quote-unquote character data type. It is just a string of one character or one letter or one character. And that is still a string. Even though it is one character, it is not a character data type. Python does not have character data types, only strings. So this would just be a string of G, not a character of G. And just like letters, words, and sentences, we can also print numbers. However, these numbers being within a quotation will not hold a numeric value. It will hold a text value only, meaning that these numbers within quotes cannot do math. So I can print that. I'll save, print, and it prints out 1. Now, while this is a number 1, it is, in this program, it is considered a string of 1. So it will not do math. It holds no numeric value. It will only print out the number 1 on your screen. So like, to put that into perspective, let's try to print a math equation within a string. And we'll say 1 plus 1. So we have a string 1 plus 1. If we were to save it and run it, instead of it actually running the equation and printing out 2, what have I done? Oh, it indent. Also in Python, you want to be careful with your indentions. We'll get into indentions and things like that when we get into definitions later in a later tutorial. But yeah, just be sure not to just leave any indentions. Make sure everything is all lined up correctly. So save it, run it again, and as you can see, instead of it printing out 2 and running the equation, it prints out 1 plus 1, and that is because, once again, these numbers in here are of text value and nothing else. So it printed out 1 plus 1. Anything in between quotation marks is what you get. Nothing more, nothing less. Now if I were to take a word, let's say hello, and not put it within the quotation marks, what this will do is basically it will run the word hello as what is known as a variable, and I will get more into variables in this video, not right now, just give me a minute. Yeah, it will define this as a variable. Let's say this is a variable and I have not input any data within the variable hello, so it will print out, it will spit back what is known as a name error and tell me that hello is not defined, because it is counting hello as a variable, which in this program has no data or has not been defined, so it's giving me an error. So if you don't have a variable that's assigned like that, you're going to have to use the quotation marks in order for it to say hello. And I'll get more into variables in this video, but before that we are going to talk about actual numbers. When I say numbers, I mean numbers that can do math, that hold numeric value, that can do things in your program other than print out on your screen. Now there are 3 types of numbers in Python, and those are integers. Now an integer is a whole number, any whole number. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on and so on. As long as it is a whole number, as long as the decimal value is 0, that is what is known as an integer. Next we have a float. Now a float is a number that holds 1 decimal value only. So we have like 1, 1.2, 2.3, 3.4, 4.5, 5.6, and even 0.1, 0.2, 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, so on and so on. As long as it has 1 decimal value, that is known as a float. And the last type we have is known as a complex. Now a complex is a number with multiple decimal point values. So we have 1.2345, 1.23, 3.45, so on and so on. As long as it has multiple decimal point values, 5.6789999, or even 3.3333333 repeated. Those are complexes. That's what's known as a complex. A number with multiple decimal point values. A float holds 1 decimal point value. An integer holds none. So to recap, an integer is a whole number. A float is a number with 1 decimal point value, and a complex is a number with multiple decimal point values, as you see here. Now you can print out these numbers with their actual numeric value by actually, let me erase this before it gives me an error. We could print out, here it is too. And we can print out the number with its actual numeric value, something that will actually perform math and things of that nature, by using the keyword print with open close parentheses, and within the parentheses just type the number that you would like to type. No quotations, no nothing, just parentheses and the number in parentheses. And we will save it. Come over here and run it, and as you can see, it prints out 1. Now the difference between this one and this one up here, as you can see, is that this is a string of 1 and this is a number of 1. So this number of 1 holds a numeric value, and it will actually do math and things of that nature. So let's get it to do a math equation. So we'll do print, say 1 plus 1, and save it. Now, when using actual numbers, we can actually perform a math equation, and as you can see, it prints out 2 down here for us. And you can use, you don't have to, it doesn't have to just be an integer and an integer, or a float and a float, or a complex and a complex. You can, mix and match them. So we can print, we'll have 5 as my integer plus 4.5, say my float, and then plus 7.12345678 9 as my complex. And I'll run that, and I'll save it and run it, and as you can see, it still performs the math equation without any problem. And those are numbers, actual numbers within Python. Now next, I want to talk about variables. Now, a variable is something in a program that can store any kind of data type. So I can have a variable and store, say, a number in it, or a string in it, or I can store a list, or an array, all kinds of things within a variable. So to define a variable, you would just type in the name of your variable, which say I'll call my variable name, and then set it equal to, and whatever you would want that variable to be. So in this instance, I'm going to set the name variable to my name. So we'll just do a string of Terrence, and as you notice, I'm using the strings, or the string method, instead of just calling it like this. And that is because, once again, in Python, anything outside of quotation marks, it will try to run it as a variable, and this will tell me that I'm trying to store the variable Terrence within the variable name. However, there is no other variable Terrence here, as you can see. So it will throw back an error. It will throw back a name error, the same name error from earlier. So I run it. Name Terrence is not defined. So I have to put this in a string, then save it, and tell it to print. I have to get to print my name, because otherwise, if you don't tell it to print it out, then it's just going to store it within the program, but you're not going to be able to call it or see it without this print method. So we'll print name, the name of our variable, without quotation marks. If I put quotation marks, it will literally print out the word name. But without the quotation marks, it will print out the variable name. So we'll save it and have, oh, that's the one from earlier. There we go, Terrence. Y'all can ignore this. This is my older program. This is hours from today. So new Python pod, yeah. As you can see, it prints out Terrence. Actually, to clear any confusion. Prints out Terrence. I can do the same. Now, if I were to come up here and say, change the name to Bob, save it. run it again. As you can see, it prints out Bob as my name. Now, if I erase this, as you can see, it will not print out. Oh, I didn't save it. It will not print out anything because I have not told it to print anything. So I'll say print name. And like just like strings, we can also store a number. So we say age. Bob is, say, 45, and we'll say print age. Save it, and it prints out Bob 45. Now, variables can be extremely useful in programming. Say you have a story, or say you have a game created, or you're like halfway through production. You have all these lines of code with the character Bob in the story, and I don't know, halfway through you just decide to change the name to Bob for XYZ reason. You can, without a variable, you would have to go through each one of those lines of code and find the name Bob and edit it to be what you want it to be. Now, I'm sure, as you may realize, that can take a long time depending on how far within production you are in your program. To save us the hassle, we have variables. So I can define the character name as Bob and say halfway through production, I want to change the name to Bob, from Bob to like Tim, and the age of Tim, and Tim is like, my friend Tim is 57. So yeah, we can go where we define the name and the age, and instead of going through the whole code and finding Tim and erasing Tim's name, finding Bob's name and erasing Bob's name and replacing it with Tim and his age with 57, we can just go where we stored, where we define the variable of the name Tim, and just go up here and change it. So now, as you can see, I've changed it. I'll save it, and down here we'll hit it and run, and as you can see now, it prints out Tim 57. Now you can add a variable to an existing quote or an existing string using a very simple syntax. We will say print, and we'll have a quote, or we'll have a string. So we'll say hello, hello, and then we'll say plus, and the variable that you would like to enter in between the string, or enter into the string. So we'll say hello, end quote, plus name, plus, or we can just leave it there for right now. We'll add stuff later. So we'll say hello, end quote, plus name, and we'll save it, and it will say hello Tim, as you can see here. So if we were to change it and come up here, say hello, or change the name to Ty, as you can see now, Ty 57, hello Ty. And as you can see, I didn't have to print out a whole, or I didn't have to go through a whole bunch of lines and find the name Ty and edit it out. One, I don't have it anywhere, but as you can see, I didn't have to type his name out anywhere like that. And it's also worth mentioning that now this variable holds an integer, an actual number. You cannot mix and match actual numbers like an integer or a float or a complex and a string within one. It will tell you that it can't concentrate a string. It'll tell you that it cannot concentrate integers into a string. So let's say I would say print hello. So we'll say hello plus name, and then to add on to this, we'll just say plus open quotes you are plus age. Plus. Alright. Now what I'm asking this to say is, hello Tim, you are 57, correct? Now this is going to throw back an error due to the fact that the variable age is an integer and not a string. So we'll save it, and I'll show you this error. As you can see, print hello, syntax error. Oh, I forgot the end quotes. Either way, it's still gonna be an error. Yeah, I'll save it. As you see, can only concentrate strings, not integers. So, since this is the age of Tim, we're not really going to want to really wanted to do any math in our program. If you do, there is a way to go around that using what is called encapsulation, and I'll get into that in the next video. But for beginners, you won't have to really worry about it too much. But since we don't really want it to do math, I could just put it in a string, and that would solve that problem. Hello Ty, you are 57, correct? And like I said, I'll get into encapsulation in the next video. But for now, this is fine. Now we can have a lot of fun with variables. We can actually step up the function of our variable using what is known as the input method. Now, I'm sure a lot of times in your program you might want input or something like that from the user. Whether it be their name, their age, things of that nature, or if you're maybe address or something like that. We can use, like I said, what is called the input method. Now the input method will take the user input, and if you like to store it within the variable, you can take the user input and store that within the variable. I'm going to show you all just the input method by itself, show you how it works, and then we will use that with a variable. So we'll say input, and you don't necessarily have to have a prompt, but you can. So I could say what is your name, and save it. And I'll come down here and run it, and as you can see, what is your name, and it is actually allowing me to do an input, as you can tell by the cursor block here. So I would say Terrence. Now it's just going to end the program because I've not told it what to do with my input. It is just input. You'll just get input and in the program. So I can take a user input or the user's input and actually store it within a variable. And to do that, I would just specify my variable. So again, I'll just use name in front of the input method. So I have name equals input, open parentheses, quote, what is your name, end quote, in parentheses. And what that will do is it will take my input, it will take the user input and store the input within the name variable. So I would say name and then print, let's say hello name plus how are you. We'll save it. And let's come over here and run it in terminal. And as you can see, it's prompting me, what is my name? What is your name? And I'll type Terrence B. And it says, hello, Terrence B. How are you? Because what it did was it took my input, it stored it into that variable, and then I called that variable using the print method within the strings. And you can do that for, a lot of things. You can say name, you can say name, age, input, how old are you? And it will say print. Actually, let's have a little fun with this. Mix it up a little bit. How old are you? Let's have a little bit of fun. Plus name. Okay, it's also worth mentioning here as well that all inputs that you put in here are strings unless you specify it to be something else using encapsulation. Yeah, any input is going to be a string. So in this instance, I'm going to put in my age, which is which is a number, but in this instance, it is an input. It is going to be a string. All inputs are strings. Take note of that. So they will not be able to do math unless you encapsulate it with an integer or float or complex method. And again, I'll get into that in the next video. So let's say print. Let's say okay. Plus H. So we'll save it. I don't know why I feel a syntax error somewhere. And let's run it. What is your name? We'll say, let's just say Tim Tebow. How old are you, Tim Tebow? I don't even know how old he is. We'll say 46. And you see now, okay, Tim Tebow, you are 46. And the possibilities just go on and on and on with input. But actually, this is where I'm going to cut it for this tutorial. The next tutorial, I will show you all how to bring all of these things together, and especially the user input, because that's really the main thing, and create our very first Python program. It won't be much, but it will be something that you can show to your friends and maybe hopefully impress them. yeah, thank you all for tuning in with me today. Stay tuned for the next video. It will be coming out soon. Just like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you all next time. I hope you all have a nice day.